all alone in my corner, all alone in my chair. Why am I going with that accent? Hey guys, welcome back to another session of the Cinderella Circle, in which I, Danielle, Marivette, Hernandez, definitely tell you different versions of Cinderella. Well, right now we are on a Rodgers and Hammerstein quest to watch and compare all the different versions that were made for television. Last time we started with the original starring Julie Andrews. This week we are concentrating on the Lesley and Warren edition. This is the one I grew up with. This is my classic Cinderella. I watch Ever After when I want something deep. I watch Rodgers and Hammerstein starring Lesley and Warren when I want whimsy. This is a musical, yay! And it is almost the same musical as the original, but it has some additions, and they're fun. So this one, 1965, Lesley and Warren plays our Cinderella. We also have Stuart Damon as the prince. He was so good. It has recently come to my attention that he passed this July 2021. Pour out a gourd for our prince. There was no gourd in my hand. Ginger Rodgers is the queen, but she hardly dances. How dare you cast Ginger Rodgers in such a lovely role and then barely escort her around the room? I'd like to talk to your director. Okay, this one starts differently from the original musical. The original musical started with the prince is throwing a ball. This version has the prince riding home weary and tired from a quest of slaying dragons and freeing damsels in distress. His words, not mine. He says he's been away for a year, now he's back, and there's a cottage in the distance. He's just so thirsty. Maybe they should go to that cottage for a dipper of water from the well. So this is where he first meets Cinderella. She's watching him from the windows. He's like, hey lass, come on out, which can be creepy, but this is a fairy tale, so we're gonna play it up for romance. She's all, I dare not, for my stepmother will surely beat me if I open this door. And he's the prince, so he's all like, nah, it'll be fine. Why don't we just keep it a secret between you and I? And she's like, oh, a secret, you say? So she gets him some water from the well. This version is endlessly quotable in my household. She gives him water from the well, and he is grateful. He says, thank you kindly. And she responds with, you are most kindly welcome. Yeah, my family and I say that all the time. Thank you kindly. Oh, you're most kindly welcome. So that's their exchange, and then she realizes he's your highness, and she's like, oh my word. And he's all like, I'm off to return to my kingdom. Oh, the prince has a song of longing that is not in the original. Something along the lines of, when will my love appear to me? So again, we have a Cinderella where it's prince-driven. The prince is equally on a quest for love. He's like, yeah, I know I have to get married for political reasons, but I would like to establish a bond between my forever person. So we're gonna do that. But we still don't get the prince is throwing a ball, because now he's got to meet his family. How do we know this is the 60s? Everything is some weird shade of orange or green. I'm as mild and as meek as a mouse. When I hear a command, I obey. This is telling me a lot about my problems. Okay, so now we finally see the step family. Her stepsisters' names are as follows. Esmeralda, of the batting of her eyelashes, and Prunella, with the creaky knees. For which her mother suggests, well, rub some unicorn oil into it. Something else we say in my family a lot. It's me and my mom. Me and my mom say it to each other all the time. So we see a cute little exchange where the stepmother is prepping the stepdaughters to be interesting and to have suitors falling at their feet, and they're not great at it. Cinderella gets yelled at, she sings in my own little corner, and we move on. We're back to the prince. He's agreeing with his parents. Yes, of course, it's time I do my duty. I must marry. But father, whom shall I marry? So innocent and pure. Love this version. And again, the prince announces, I wish to marry for love. This is, of course, when the king is like, I have an idea. You're throwing a ball, kid. Finally, we get the famous, the prince is throwing a ball. Although I don't think we ever hear
him called Christopher in this version. In the original, everyone was like, Prince Christopher, please call me Prince Christopher. All of that. In this one, it's just mentioned once in the song, and then the prince, or La, Your Highness. So, it's ball night. Stepmother is hypercritical of her daughters. That's right, no one is spared from her tongue. No one. Cinderella helps them leave, and then she is sad. Now we see the grieving Cinderella weeping as she tries to comfort herself with her imagination, which is a great tool, but it cannot be our entire lives. You know how I know this? Fairy godmother shows up and she's like, I have an idea. We're going to take your imagination. We're going to make it happen. And then, of course, Cinderella is like, but that's impossible. And then the fairy godmother is like, and that's my cue. Impossible for a plain country bumpkin and a prince to join in marriage. And 4 white mice will never be 4 white horses. They will. I love this musical. Fight me, but don't. Sing with me instead. Such faldara and fiddly-dee, of course, is impossible. It's possible, but the world is full of zanies and fools who don't believe in sensible rules and don't believe what sensible people say. And because these daft and dewy-eyed dopes keep dreaming up impossible hopes, impossible things are happening every day. It's possible. It's possible. So she has her huge transformation number, and now we get the dress. Let me state that this is a reimagining of the original Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella starring Julie Andrews. When they did it, it was Regency style. But this version in the 60s has gone more medieval. That's the sort of costuming we're seeing, especially with the headdresses. Cinderella's medieval gown is white with gold sequins and, well, we'll call it white beading, but they're sequins. She's got a fur-lined shoulder. Well, clearly, I didn't really study fashion. I just study what I see on camera. Whatever, it's fur-lined with little ermine tails. Is it ermine or ermine? Ermine. Like Herman? Ermine! White, gold, glittery, fur-lined. She's got a crown. She's showing up as a princess. She's showing up and saying, oh, la, your highness, I have arrived. I have arrived. I have arrived. I get very excited. We see the glass slippers. She actually rides off in a gold pumpkin. Of course, it's carriage-sized, thankfully. And the prince is once again bored to tears, although he doesn't have quite the dead behind the eyes look that our other prince was suffering from, thankfully. This prince is more like he's enduring it. He can handle it. He's the prince. He has championed wizards and damsels in distress and dragons. He can handle a ball, but he's suffering. He's suffering. So you have this cute exchange with the women trying to talk to him, especially the stepsisters. So here we learn the prince likes to tease. One of the stepsisters asks if she can make a personal remark. He says yes. And then she comments on the weather. His response is, you should not make such personal remarks, and sends her off. And the other stepsister comes out and says she's trying to make a personal remark. And he mentions, well, I've already been told about the weather. And she's like, you are in tolerable good health. Do you always say such personal things? And then she starts creaking. So once again, the prince is kind of sassy. He makes comments to the mom. Yes, he has complaints about all the ladies because he's not into them. He's not into any of them. He goes up to the parents. He's like, I can't do it. And they're like, what? You can't dance? And he's like, honestly, it's not that I can't dance, it's that I am stressed out and I am depressed. And they're like, well, who's that at the top of the stairs? But, so Cinderella gets her grand entrance. There's always a grand entrance. I don't feel like we talk about this often enough, but there's this moment. Yeah, that intake of breath. Almost where you're holding your breath, but only because you were forced to. So she gets the transformation. She descends the steps like the angel she is, and he sweeps her off her feet, and he's got eyes for no one else because now they're gonna go sing 10 minutes ago in the garden, which is an amazing song. 10 minutes ago I met you and we murmured our how do you do's.
Oh, yes. And every time she twirls, that dress just twirls with her. I was obsessed with this dress. Yes, was. I am obsessed with this dress. I want to spin around a ballroom in this dress with all of that fabric just going around me. So they're in the garden. We again have the same songs as the original 10 minutes ago and Do I Love You. Do I love you because you're wonderful? Or are you wonderful because I love you? Then the stepsisters have their fantastic song, The Stepsisters Lament, in which they just can't get over that the prince is so into this perfect woman. How dare he, and how dare she for that matter. And then we move on to, oh, it's midnight, they've kissed, and she's got to run away. So when she makes it back home, and by the way, like, she transforms on the spot. She loses a shoe, it's after midnight, she's back in her orange and green. But now she's filled with dreams and hopes and love, and she sings and dances around the garden. A lovely night, a lovely night, a finer night you know you'll never see, but hopefully you will. So she's home, the step family arrives home, they all dance around the kitchen because she fills them with her imagination, and I think it's the first time that any of the step family has played imagination. So they play around and they're like, what? We're singing and dancing with Cinderella. No, Cinderella. The prince singing the reprise of Do I Love You because you're wonderful. Or are you wonderful because I love you? Stay tuned. It's both. The parents have some fun banter. He's like, I must go on a quest. The prince has his quest. He tries on this shoe. We see him traveling and now he's tired. He's hungry. He's dejected. And they've come to the last house, a cottage. And so the stepsisters are like, oh my God, he's here. And the stepmother sends Cinderella out to the garden. She's like, get out of here. Cinderella's like, now? But. So the stepsisters try that on. Even the stepmother tries to try on the shoe. And then he leaves and the fairy godmother comes in clutch. Although, unlike in the original in which she's like, you should arrest that girl and try on her shoe. Glad they didn't go down that road. Also, she's not in the castle this time, so I don't see why they would go down that road. The fairy godmother instead comforts Cinderella and reminds her about, well, how sad and tired and thirsty the prince must be, and she should offer him some water from the well, which she does, and they have that same exchange. Thank you kindly. You're most kindly welcome. We've spoken these words before. Try on my shoe. And she does. And then it's a whole transformation, in which case he should probably seriously consider the fact that maybe Cinderella is a witch. Note to self, write that version of Cinderella. And everyone lives happily ever after. Oh, and this stage has horses. And they just ride horses down to their royal wedding, in which they're greeted with the family. And that is the end of Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella starring Lesley and Warren. Very similar to the original with fun differentials. There's different stage jokes, there's new songs, and they removed the stuff that didn't translate to a more modern audience. So it really worked. It's a lot of fun. It's extremely colorful, like saturated colors. Saturated colors. I would say it is much more like the next one we'll talk about, which is the brandy version of Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella, which also is very colorful. But those colors are more pastels and whimsies, whereas these colors are like, this is red, that's pink, this is green. Very extreme. And then we finish it off with a reprise of Impossible by the fairy godmother, reminding us that these things are happening every day. My friends, when things feel impossible, just remember impossible things that are happening every day. Thank you so much for joining me. I love this version. I loved sharing it with you. No birds. Her connection to nature, water. This follows pretty much all of the standard Cinderella lines. She's got a fairy godmother instead of her spiritual mother, which we honestly don't see too often. Even though her parents are not here, she only ever mentions her father. So it's that one. It's that kind. All right, I'm out, and I'll see you guys next time for the epic conclusion of Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella, Brandy and Whitney Houston. Oh yeah, and Bernadette Peters. I mean, come on.